Welcome to New Realities. My name is Alan Steinfeld, and each week on the show I like to present people who are seeing the reality and the world from a different point of view, people who have a larger perspective on who we are in our bodies, our spiritual evolution, and this evolution of consciousness, let's say, that's happening on the planet. Tonight's guest is someone who's really devoted her life to the study in a very practical way and a philosophical way, too. Her name is Susun Weed, and she is the author of many books on herbology and herbs and like the new menopausal years for the Wise Woman way. These books are Bibles for women coming through different phases of their life, and Susan's going to share her knowledge, her philosophy, and her wisdom. Thank you, Susun.
Green blessings. I'm glad to be with you, Ellen.
Yes, Susan's also the founder of the Wise Woman tradition, the modern Wise Woman tradition. And what is actually meant by that term, Wise Woman?
Well, I perceive three different ways to think about health and healing.
Okay.
Not just health and healing, but that's what I'm interested in, so we're going to focus on that.
Yes.
The scientific tradition,
Yes.
which is the one that I grew up in, and the one that's, let's say, the kind of current one. And the scientific tradition basically says that a body is like a machine.
Right.
And that just like a machine, we can replace the parts. It needs to have its oil changed now and then.
Right.
And you kind of take your body machine to the mechanic doctor, and then you go home and watch TV while the mechanic doctor fixes your body machine, and then you come back and get it.
And along those lines, the food we put in ourselves are just like gas. So we can really fill our
So
gas
long
with
as you
anything.
have the right number of calories
Yes.
and carbohydrates
Yes,
and fats
Yes.
and protein, it really doesn't matter where you get it from. So we come in the scientific tradition to a confusion,
Right.
for instance, between calcium in food and calcium in pills. Right.
Yes.
So for myself, and I suspect for you as well,
Yeah.
the scientific tradition failed me in terms of healing.
Yeah, in terms of giving me a whole perspective on what the body's about. I know it's not about chemicals. I know there's more than a bio machine. So, yes.
Well, for me, I mean an honest failure. I had constant bladder infections as a child, and they gave me drugs that almost destroyed my kidneys.
So how did
So
you...
by the time I was a teenager, I realized that modern medicine was not all bliss.
Right.
And that I could be harmed by it. So I began to look for something else and found what most people find when they look for something else, which is alternative medicine,
Right.
which I call the heroic tradition.
Okay.
And not that I made up that term, that's actually the term that they used.
Who they?
100 years ago in the United States, the alternatives, the herbalists, call themselves the heroics.
And that comes from...
Well, we know what a hero does. A hero saves the day.
Oh, I see.
Ellen, if you do what I tell you to do, you're going to get well. And if
Okay.
you don't do what I tell you to do, you're going to die the miserable death you deserve.
So that was the heroic tradition.
That is the heroic tradition.
That's
right?
also, you're saying, that's also a kind of black and white tradition as well.
Well, it certainly is, isn't it?
Yeah, well, from what
it
you're
has
saying.
to do with cleansing. In the scientific tradition, we just have a machine. In the heroic tradition, we have a filthy temple. And we have to clean our filthy temple to make it pure and high and white and holy. And young and male.
Whatever. Or young and female.
Well,
No?
No, female is the source of all filth on this planet, as we know.
Well, I guess from the heroic tradition?
From the heroic tradition.
They say that, even though
they
all
do.
those...
Indeed, they say that a healthy woman doesn't menstruate or go through menopause.
They say that?
That's right.
How is that possible? I mean,
Well, of course it's not possible, but if you eat only raw food or you restrict your diet sufficiently, you will stop menstruating and you will not go through menopause because you are so damaging your reproductive ability by poor food choice.
So you're saying there's something besides the alternative and the scientific orthodox?
Yes, there's something besides the scientific and the heroic, and that's the Wise Woman tradition.
Okay.
Which is the oldest tradition of healing. And in the Wise Woman tradition, we start from the premise that whatever is going on is right.
Whatever your body is doing.
Whatever's happening is right.
So
right. We were just talking before the show about men losing hair, right?
Right.
Right. And I was saying, but that's right, because that's your testosterone. Right. Your testosterone kills your hair follicles. So you get older and you see that bald spot and you go, yeah, I'm a man, all right, right? Same thing. A woman gets to menopause, she starts having hot flashes. We can get rid of those hot flashes? No. Those hot flashes are her Kundalini training wheels.
Really?
Yeah. Now you know what Kundalini
I do
is,
know
right?
it, and my audience knows what Kundalini.
Your audience,
Yes,
so we don't even have to explain.
No,
what
we don't have to
Kundalini is.
explain what
All
Kundalini
right,
is, but
good. Well, now in English, this k sound that starts this word,
yeah.
we could. Well, Kundalini starts with a K, but what other letter could we use?
C.
C. All right.
Yes.
And then at the end,
Kun.
Yeah. What other?
I know what you're going. I know where you're
exactly.
going. Yes.
So
okay.
we say the Kundalini resides in the base of the spine, which is true for you.
Okay.
But my Kundalini resides
in the base of your womb, let's say.
Exactly. In my K-U-N-D spelled slightly differently.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, which is where that word came from.
Is it? It's where the English slang word came from, that same root.
Same root,
I didn't know that.
exactly, yeah, because this is where the energy is. Now, when you and I were young, when we were just children, we existed in Kundalini, the way a fish exists in water. You ask us about energy, we wouldn't have been able to tell you anything because it just is. And we
were
just
energy.
Were, exactly.
Yeah,
we look at all the adults and go, what is wrong with them?
It's like those little kids that run around all day only until they just fall asleep.
Fall asleep, exactly. So we have this, tremendous energy at puberty for both you and me.
Yes.
This Kundalini comes into
the first chakra,
into the root chakra, into the base, right?
Okay.
And then we notice that in little boys because things start happening, and we notice it in little girls because they begin to menstruate.
Right.
Our bodies change because this energy changes how the endocrine glands are functioning.
Because the chakras are connected to the endocrine glands. I mean, they're basically endocrine glands, and the Hindu thing put the whole chakra.
So
but we could talk in terms of the ductless glands.
The ductless glands are very much affected by this Kundalini energy.
Yes.
Now, you, sir, unless you do enormous amount of personal work, will be there for the rest of your life with this energy in your root chakra. As you
unless I pull it up.
Unless you pull it up.
I've been studying the Mata Chia stuff, and I have been able to pull it and not just have a localized sensation, but I turn it into breath and power and energy up in the upper chest.
Right. So you have to do that work, right?
Yes.
As a woman, that's given to me.
Is it?
It's totally given to me because that Kundalini just doesn't just stay in my pelvis, right? I build it up and I build it up and I build it up until I menstruate.
Right. Is that what menstruates out the energy inside?
That's part of what it is, right? Because I need to collect that energy to make a baby. Right? Talk to a woman who's like 4 or 5 days before she's going to bleed, right? Give her a broom, she'll clean the world. Give her a gun, she'll clean the world.
She's pulling energy right into her uterine cavity, her uterus.
Right. She's doing that all month, and then she menstruates and pushes that energy back out again. Or she gets pregnant, and she builds up that energy. Right, the woman who's going to
make a whole human being.
Right, the woman who's going to give birth in 2 weeks. Is she sleeping 12 hours a day? No. She's like up night and day, knitting booties and repainting the nursery because she's flooded with life force energy.
Wow.
Right, and then she pushes that baby down and out. So for women, the energy comes in and we push it out, and it comes in and we push it out until we get to menopause. And then the gate that lets the energy out shuts permanently.
Now, is there a way to stop menopause from
happening?
Hang on,
we don't want to stop menopause.
You don't
menopause is not only healthy for the individual woman, it's tremendously healthy for our culture as a whole.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, Kristen Hawkes at the University of Utah says that menopause is as important as a large brain and an upright posture.
Now, why is that?
Well, let's
follow
what's going to go on with Kundalini and not lose our thread. And we will come back to that. Okay. So at this point, right, when a woman moves into menopause, the energy, the part of the energy gate that lets the energy flow back out again, shuts permanently.
So it doesn't flow.
So as one woman said, menopause, that's just 10 years of PMS. Right? So that buildup of energy can't go back out the way it's been going out, which is down. Now, if that energy,
the baby or to menstruate,
right? So if that energy just stayed in the pelvis, it would have horrible consequences, right? Because it's a big, fast, hot energy.
Right.
It could cause incontinence, uterine prolapse, fragility of the hips.
Is that no?
And that's totally gone at menopause.
Okay, but it could cause whatever.
But it causes a buildup of energy there.
Yes.
Okay. And most postmenopausal women are going to have a little belly to hold that extra energy there, and that again is right for a woman's body, just as a postmenopausal woman needs more cholesterol in order to be healthy. She goes for a man's level of cholesterol, she's going to be very unhealthy.
I see.
So here's this energy building up in the pelvis. What would a smart body do with it?
It would discharge it, right?
Which way? What did you do with it? Up. So you have to learn to move your energy up Nature gives me that.
And that's the hot flash.
And that's the hot flash. You're studying to have hot flashes. I just get them.
Right.
Right? So why would we take my hot flash away and call it a problem? But when you get a hot flash, call it enlightenment.
So what can women do with their hot flash? Can they
get enlightened.
And can they channel that energy to the...
As I said, hot flashes are your Kundalini training wheels.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay, good.
Right?
Yes.
So you have to learn during your menopausal passage how to deal with this energy that is now going through all your chakras, isn't it? This is what's hard about moving this energy up, isn't it? Because as it moves up, boom, 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 we have the woman who's always said, of course I'll bring brownies for the bake sale. Oh, yes, you need somebody. I'll do it. Oh, I'm so happy to do it. And suddenly this energy gets here, and she's either going to have her thyroid fail, or she's going to start saying no.
Good.
Right in the 50s, what did they do to menopausal women who started saying no?
What did they do?
They locked them up in mental institutions.
But that's never been a problem for you, I bet, right?
Well,
you've always had your Kundalini rising. But
I have worked with it. I've done serious yoga since I was 18. Right. So but that doesn't mean I didn't have hot flashes.
But the thing about locking women up in mental institutions, the word hysteria and
the uterus is
the
hyster. That's the Greek word for it, exactly.
The goddess hyster.
But hysterical means anything that a man doesn't like. Basically, right? You go back to Charlotte Burke and send the yellow wallpaper. Right, but she is literally locked up in her own house. So as this energy comes through these chakras, say we have the woman who has held every broken heart she's ever had. We know people like that, both men and women, right? And they're just, right? Well, here comes Kundalini. Her heart's going to go like this, isn't it? As that energy tries to get through. So the Kundalini says, hello, are you holding things in this chakra that maybe you would like to lighten your load at this point? So when a woman gets to menopause, what she needs is time out and time alone. Down in Tennessee, they have a wonderful cultural thing. When a woman gets to a certain age, her partner or husband builds a pouting house. And he goes and lives in the pouting house until she says, it's safe to come home, honey. Because women really need alone time. I think of this not as a change. Right? Hey, you know, if we wanted to change, we could change your tie, right?
Right.
That wouldn't really affect you, would it?
Right.
It's not even, you know, something stronger than change. I would have to say it's metamorphosis.
It's a of consciousness. It's
right. It's not a transformation. It's a metamorphosis.
It's a change in being.
A total
like
change.
The caterpillar to the butterfly.
Exactly, exactly. So when the caterpillar wants to become a butterfly, does it go out in public and do that?
No, it goes into its cocoon. It's little,
but goes into its cocoon. We must support menopausal women to go into their cocoon. Now, have you ever taken a cocoon apart at the wrong time?
Yeah, it's this gooey little stuff in there.
Yeah, because you know what? It's not fun to be gooey stuff in public. And so when, you know, caterpillar hood, that's kind of nice. Butterfly hood, we could look forward to it.
Yes.
But gooey stuff? Nobody wants to go there, Ellen. Nobody wants to melt down to the gooey stuff.
If the Kundalini is rising at the hot flash, why does it stop at a certain point? When do you get out of the cocoon?
Because you have rebuilt your endocrine glands and your nervous system to carry 220 volts instead of 110 volts.
What does that mean, 220 volts?
Kundalini. So powerful energy is now going through your entire nervous system. Right? Remember, it's only been at the root chakra. And this is where most people live and die, is through their root chakra.
So it's never, now in women who have gone through that.
Women who are having hot flashes, the Kundalini is rising. If we get rid of the hot flashes, then we never learn how to move our Kundalini.
Oh, so the Kundalini is the hot flashes are rebuilding the nervous system for women.
Well, you have to do things to rebuild your nervous system.
Yeah, but
such as oat straw infusion, which will rebuild the nervous system, such as take time for yourself, which will rebuild the nervous system.
And then they can have this higher voltage of energy.
Yes, but again, it takes a while to do this. It doesn't happen overnight. Right? So there's going to be some meltdown years. There's going to be some years where that woman feels like what you just described, the caterpillar turns into.
Right.
Gooey gunk. I call it the green slime period.
So then they need that time to reevaluate their lives and all that. And
Right. If we can support them in doing that. Now, some women, it's hard. My friend Marie started her menopause when she was 39. And she was a massage therapist, and she lives by herself. She can't just take 2 years off. All right. So what did she do? She bought herself a Crone's throne. She went out and she bought a really beautiful, gorgeous, exquisite chair that she just felt like the queen of the world in. And she'd be massaging someone, and she'd say, "Oh, excuse me, I'm having a hot flash." And she'd go and sit in her Crone's throne while she had the hot flash. And then she'd come back and she'd massage the person. Well, after 3 or 4 months, of course, her training was going, And she says to one of her clients, she said, I'm not supposed to, actually lose body contact with you while I'm doing the massage, and I'm going over and sitting in my chair. And this is horrible for you. And the person said, "Marie, you keep telling me to take care of myself, and now I can see you taking care of yourself. This is the best gift you could possibly give me."
Right, but at 39, it's young. Isn't there an imbalance if a woman has?
Absolutely not. Every woman starts menopause at the age of 25.
They do, but that's their childbearing years.
That's right.
So how do the two?
Well, let's go back to when we're in the uterus.
Okay.
Okay. The uterine environment is a very high estrogen environment.
Okay.
And all fetuses, all embryos, start out as female.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
If we are lucky enough, I'll put it from my perspective, to get in the great lottery 2 X's, then that allows our cells to make use of that estrogen environment.
Okay.
And we remain female.
Okay.
If, like you got a piece broken off, your X,
why it's a Y
it's a Y instead of an X.
Which is really a missing set of chromosomes.
Exactly, and literally is. Then you can't use that estrogen, and so your genitals morph into male genitals.
Oh, okay.
All right? Okay. As a woman, when my ovaries are formed in utero, which is sometime around the 5th or 6th month, from that point on, I start making estrogen. And I make 29 different kinds of estrogen before I'm even born.
Really?
And I'm making those 29 kinds of estrogen every single day of my life, from before I'm born till when I die.
You still, even postmenopausal, you're making estrogen?
29 kinds of estrogen.
29 times?
29
That's why
kinds
women
of
are so confused about estrogen supplements and all that replacement. It is
crazy. Okay, do you remember the story of Sleeping Beauty?
She sleeps for like 7 years.
Well, how does that story start?
That's not with the 7 dwarfs. I don't know.
It's not quite. Well,
there's the woman that gives her.
Well, that's close to, but the very beginning is there's a little baby, and which is the princess, and the king has a christening, and he invites the 12 good fairies, and the 12 good fairies bring her beautiful gifts. Those are the 29 good estrogens.
And the one,
but he didn't invite the 13th fairy, and she came and gave a gift that we might say was a dubious gift. It was not a bad gift.
Yes. Okay.
Right? She said, when you are 13, you will bleed, and this will cause you to fall asleep. Now, bleed is another way to talk about menstruation. So she wasn't really making her bleed, but her father, not understanding menstruation, thought, oh my goodness, I have to take away from the kingdom anything that will make her bleed. And then, as you recall, how does she find this old woman? She goes up a
spiral staircase.
Is this imagery
of the Kundalini? We're back to the Kundalini. Yes.
Okay. The spiral staircase, the DNA.
Yeah.
So she goes up this, and at the top she finds the crone. So the maiden travels the DNA, comes to the crone, and the crone initiates her into her womanhood. However, because the patriarch rules, she has to fall asleep at that point. She can't really be a woman.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so the 13th fairy is Estradiol, the strongest of all estrogens, and the estrogen that is only made in a woman's life from puberty to menopause. And at that, only 1 day a week, or 1 day a month.
1 day a month.
One day a month.
When they're fertile, when women are fertile?
You're right, it triggers ovulation.
Okay.
So 1 day a month, we make this very strong estrogen, which is stronger than the other 29 combined.
I see.
But Alan, I'm not missing anything. At 61 years old, believe me, I am not missing any estrogen at all.
Right.
Right? I'm not making estradiol, but estradiol is to breast cancer as kerosene is to fire.
What do you mean?
What do I mean? If we spilled some kerosene here, would a fire start?
Well, if we had a match.
If we had a match, okay?
Yeah.
So estradiol is to breast cancer as kerosene is to fire. Kerosene itself isn't going to cause fire.
Right.
Estradiol won't cause fire. But if you have a match, It will
and what would
not
that
just
match
make
be
a fire,
then?
but it will be
What would the
practically
match
explicit.
be for Estradiol, for women?
It can be a huge variety of different things, but the link between estradiol and breast cancer is so profound that if a woman breastfeeds for 3 months, which means 3 days she doesn't make estradiol, she reduces her risk of breast cancer by 2%.
So so breastfeeding her children,
Being pregnant, right? 9 months when we don't make estradiol reduces your risk of breast cancer.
Oh, I see.
For every year before the age of 15 that a woman has menstruated, her risk of breast cancer goes up. For every year beyond the age of 50 that a woman menstruates, her risk of breast cancer goes up because those are continuing pulses of estradiol, which feeds cancer. So at the age of 20, a white woman's risk of breast cancer in the United States right now is 1 in 20,000. Okay, that's not much. That's a lot, but it's not very much. Because by the time we get to 40, the risk is 1 in 400.
Really?
Now that's more,
Now,
isn't
is that environmental? Is that because you've said, I think
it's because of estradiol.
But you've also said things like tofu are, I mean, I know you don't like tofu.
Big
Yes,
problem,
you
right.
should tell people because there's
At
a
the
whole
age of 50, the risk of breast cancer for a white woman in the U.S. is 1 in 50.
Really? That is
So
horrible.
what would a smart woman do sometime between the ages of 40 and 50?
What would they do?
Stop making estradiol. That's called menopause.
So if a woman's in menopause, they decrease the risk of...
That's right. That's why I said menopause is healthy.
Now, why would...
Menopause allows us to live another 50 years.
But why would a woman get cancer just by making that thing when if their body is healthy in general,
hormone promotes cancer.
But if their body's healthy...
No.
No?
No. Cancer has nothing to do with being unhealthy.
What does that have to do?
It has to do with wanting to live forever.
Oh. And what...
Isn't that what a cancer cell does?
Oh, I see.
Isn't that what the problem with cancer is?
Is that, yeah.
Every cell in your body replicates itself, and then the old cell dies, unless it's a cancer cell. In which case, they just keep making more and more and more of themselves.
Right.
That's what makes it cancer. Cancer cells are the youngest, healthiest, strongest cells in your body.
So what do you recommend? I mean, let's finish the whole menopausal thing, but then
Right, well, we certainly can't finish the whole menopausal thing. That's why I have a book. There's over 300 pages.
No, and it's a great book, and it is a Bible for women going through this process for sure.
We have thyroid problems in here. There's a whole chapter on the problems with tofu and soy. There's a whole chapter on the big problems with progesterone creams. And as a matter of fact, the National Women's Health Network has just put out a position paper saying that bioidentical hormones are new age snake oil.
Really?
No hormones are needed to be added to your body, no matter what is going on.
Well, if the risks for women are so high, what can a woman do? What can women
Stop
do?
making estradiol.
Yeah, but how would they stop that?
By menopause.
Yes, but you can't will that.
Sure, you can.
You can. How would you do that? How would a woman do that?
My sister at 42 sat down, had a talk with her ovaries, and said, "We're not making any more babies. You can just stop."
I see.
And she was in menopause within a year. Okay, so when we get to puberty, we start making estradiol.
Okay.
Now, you don't remember because it never happened to you, but the women listening remember that at puberty, estradiol isn't made regularly. So you might menstruate 1 month and then skip a month or two. Or 1 month you might have the period from outer space because you've made so much estradiol. And the next month it might be a few drops because you've just made a little estradiol. And it's really going to affect all the other hormones there, right? So it's kind of a bumpy road at the beginning. And then estradiol and the pineal and the pituitary get it all sorted out. And you start to make pretty much the same amount, except a little bit more from the time when you start menstruating until you hit 25. So every month you're making just a little bit more. At 25, you start making a little bit less.
I see.
And a little bit less, and a little bit less. So some women come down off that peak, and 15 years later, at 40, they're starting menopause. Other women come very, very, very slowly off of it, and so they don't start menopause until they're in their 60s. But all women start making less and less estradiol in their mid-20s. Exactly where we say menopause starts. That's where she starts to notice that she's making less estradiol.
So let's get back to this idea that hot flashes being kundalini, and when they stop, that means the woman is complete in her metamorphosis process.
That's right. She's become a butterfly.
Yeah. Okay.
She's become a butterfly. Or we have a situation where a woman doesn't have enough life force energy to have a hot flash.
Oh.
In other words, she's ruined her health by use of vegetarianism, or she had veganism. She's eaten a lot of soy. She's eating raw food. She
I
has
know
really
you're so radical.
messed
You don't
her
like the
body up.
the
big
vegans,
time.
the vegetarians. They're
I
not,
like them as people. They're
Of
just making
course.
such poor choices for their health.
because
I cannot tell you how many vegetarian friends of mine in their 50s and 60s are having hip replacements, Alan.
Really?
It's
Well,
sad. It destroys your bones.
I was never vegetarian. I love what meat does. It makes
Right.
me feel solid.
What does Michael Poulan say?
I don't
Let
know.
me
What is it?
quote. It's very beautiful.
Okay.
He says, eat food,
Mm.
not too much.
Mhm. Mhm.
All right? And that said,
Mhm.
make it mostly vegetables,
Mhm.
but meat won't kill you.
Right.
Right, and that's
I
what
totally
I'm not
agree.
for bacon for breakfast, bologna for lunch, and
Right.
ham for dinner.
A little bacon,
A
though. is pretty
little,
good.
yeah. I buy 5 pounds of bacon a year.
And you eat your own goats. Is that true?
Well, you don't run, but that's it. That's how
Right.
much bacon I have, and I share it. So
Right.
I'm not even eating that much, right?
Mhm.
So I'm trying to eat, I do my best to eat meat the way most of the people in the world eat meat,
uh-huh,
which is as a celebration.
Wow. You know what?
And of course, I keep the dairy goats. They're goats for milk. Oh, we're coming to the end of our
I
show.
know. I
Okay, it's
just
like-
want to ask you like a ridiculous question, but is there anything in the Wise Woman tradition for men?
Of course there is.
Okay.
That's why it's not the wise woman's tradition,
Uh-huh.
the wise women tradition,
Mhm.
because, well, gee, can you spell this word for me?
WOMAN, womb of man, the womb of man.
Man is right there, isn't it?
Right, yes.
Okay, for a man, I would just cross out breast here and put prostate.
Because that's
Prostate
a-
cancer, question mark, prostate health, exclamation point, because they're virtually the same kind of
They
cancer.
are.
Prostate and breast.
Ah.
A woman whose brother has prostate cancer is more likely to get breast cancer than
Really?
if her mother had breast cancer.
Oh, so it's the same dietary stuff. It's the same.
And it has nothing to do with diet.
What does it have to do with? What's the key to
Our
health?
show is coming to an
I know.
end.
Give us the
But
key.
we will come back
No, but
to
just
that. There is
before
no
we-
particular key
I
to,
know,
you
to health.
see, in the wise woman way,
Yes.
again, remember, we're starting from what's happening is perfect.
Mhm.
Death is perfect too.
Right, of course.
Disease is perfect too. It doesn't mean that you are an invalid person or that you must become a patient and be
But you
told
can do
what to-
something to prevent. I mean, all your herbal cures are
Certainly.
to
I
help.
want to be
mean,
as healthy, and
yes,
you want to be
yes,
as healthy.
everyone
but
does,
that
yeah.
doesn't mean that I'm going to despise myself if I get a cold.
Right, of
Or
course.
thing, because
But-
the heroic tradition says you got a cold because you did something wrong. You
Right.
ate ice cream, or you had a
Right.
bad thought, or
Well-
no. What I'm saying is to be alive is to be changeable.
Susan.
And that means you're going to get sick and you're going to die.
All
Those
right.
things are
I
given.
have had guests that say that's not true. Leonard Orr, the immortalist.
So far as I know, Buddha died, Jesus died, and Allah died. Yeah?
Well, I don't know. I haven't
Okay.
been there. But Sue, I've been talking to Susan Reed, and we have more. Stay tuned for our second part coming up, and I've been happy to
We'll
talk.
get into some specifics
Yes,
about
let's
how
get
to
into
prevent
some
cancer and
specific-
other things.
All
okay?
that, all that. Thank you for watching.
Green
This is
blessings. So glad you
Alan
could be with us.
Yes. See you next time. Thank you. Well, I do.